Okay, welcome back to another episode of the ConquerCast. I am extremely excited, a bit nervous for this one. Eva Shockey Brent is here with us today. If you don't know Eva, you're living under a rock. Eva has paved the way in the hunting industry. I feel like, we were just talking about this, you are an outlier. You've like been the trailblazer, I think the face and the name for hunting when it comes to females and paving the way, giving them this example to follow. And it's now not just in hunting, it's as a mother, as a wife, in fashion, in fitness. There's so many elements to your life and to your story and everything that you do. I don't even know exactly where to go. I know some topics we want to hit on, but this one's a particularly special podcast in my opinion because it will launch the week of Mother's Day. And so this is a special edition of the ConquerCast, the Mother's Day edition. And I know that will be, a special but maybe sensitive topic with the passing of your mother about 1.5 years ago, correct? Mm-hmm. And just an incredible lady. But what a legacy that she's left, and what a life you are living that I know she's proud of. And you're an author, you're a television personality, you're an influencer online. I would say that the Shockey family is kind of the royal family of the outdoor industry. And so anyways, I'm super excited. There's a lot of different topics we could talk about, but thank you for being here. Thanks for coming to the Mountain Ops headquarters and making this time for us to be with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I honestly can go any direction, which I think is something that's unique. As I've gotten older, I've been able to appreciate that. I always felt like I didn't have a lane when I was younger because I love so many things. Yeah. And I always say I'm like just above average on a lot of things. Like I can kind of like hang in a lot of different sectors. So I love talking about whatever you want to talk about today. Okay. And I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, that's good. No, we at Mountain Ops, we're super grateful for the relationship. I just gave Eva a pair of shoes that is the shoe we gave to the team this year. Just a kind of a thank you for being part of the team for such a long time. It's you've been with us from the beginning, from 2014, and I from our whole team, we're all excited to have you here today. Everyone was excited when they heard you were coming out. But we want to express our gratitude because whether some of those partners of ours realize it or not, we're doing some incredible things in the industry, and it's a lot due to the influence that you have, that Cam has, that those that we work with. And I was just mentioning, we're at 7 million meals being donated through Operation Conquer Hunger. It speaks volumes to the partnerships that have been created, in my opinion, where people have come together and your influence is impacting the good that we are able to do. And so I just want to thank you. Let's look back at the last 10 and a half years of Mountain Ops. What has it meant to you to be a part of the Mountain Ops family, the community that's been created here with this brand?
It's been such a integral part of my brand the whole time because I'm 37, so 10 years, that was like 27-ish. I couldn't remember exactly when it was, but it must have been around 2014. Yeah. Jordan, one of the original brothers, who's awesome, he jogged after me in an aisle at one of the trade shows, maybe SHOT Show or SDI or something. And I was walking, and I usually walk pretty fast trying to get to where I'm going to the next meeting or a signing or whatever. And I remember him in a physical jog because I was ahead of him. And he tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I'd never met him before. Yeah. And he had little samples or sachets, or it might have even been Ziploc. I don't know, Ziploc. Something like that. It was not
some white powders that you're like, should I be taking this from you?
And he explained the mission and the brand, and y'all were so new. He's like, "I'd love if you would try these." And I was thinking, and he was, him obviously, the personality, just so friendly. And I'm like, I don't know what he's selling, but I will take it because he's amazing. And so that was the first time I tried it, and then immediately started talking with Mountain Ops, and I was trying to think back of when we started creating even the Eva line. I was before I was pregnant with my daughter, who is now 8.5. It's been a long time. So being involved with the Mountain Ops brand, and the reason I immediately didn't even question it was just because what you guys stand for, and family and God, and I've loved one of the things I've told people over and over through the years when we used to do the trade shows and y'all would shut down your booth on Sundays. And it was when you were small and growing and you could have made a lot of money for your company on Sundays. Yeah. And at first I was like, what are they thinking? And then realizing, because that's a day of rest and that's a day, in, you know, faith-based. And I thought that was just such a strong stance to have. And just being involved and being in any way part of that story and that the history of that is just incredible, and I'm so grateful to be part of it.
Oh, that's cool. I love that you mentioned that, because those are choices you make in a business. And I had somebody once ask me, isn't there a big risk in that? That's a day where there's revenue, there's people there wanting to spend money at Mountain Ops. And my thought was, my bigger risk is with God. And people observe the Sabbath day differently. That was just one of the things that I had chosen to do from a young age, because my parents had met at church, and by, you know, them going there and deciding to be there, they met each other, and then they had 7 children, and that day just has become super important to me. And so, you know, when you found a business, you're able to say, here's how we're going to run it, and here's some principles or core values. And we just decided that would be one for us. And so that's interesting to hear from you that was an important part of the decision-making process for you to join Mountain Ops, and us recognizing God and doing those things. But no, it's been incredible. Tell everyone a little bit about the line and what we sell. I know you don't just use the Eva Shockey line. I see you utilizing the Hydrate quite a bit. So what are some of your favorite products? But maybe tell us a little bit about what you like about this line. I know your mother-in-law steals it all from you.
She does, yes. From Canada, comes in from Canada, restocks every time they come visit. So when we first designed this line, and honestly the design process and creation process was like at least 2 years. It was quite a while, because we started before I was pregnant with Lenny, and then we did the photo shoot to launch it, and Lenny was like 1.5. Like, I mean, it was a long process, and it changed a fair bit. And the reason we launched this in the first place was because I think the brand of Mountain Ops in general, obviously, is pretty intense and tough, and like working out, like that's what the brand is. And I love that stuff, and I love to work out, and I'm pretty intense, but I also, I maybe like a little more like lifestyle and a mom and like day to day, and I don't need to, you know, if I'm not the strongest, that's okay. But if I'm healthy, that's what I care about. And so we were trying to create a little more of an inclusive brand for people that maybe were looking for that weren't looking to go pump a bunch of iron, but still wanted to be really healthy. And not that they can't take every other brand, but we wanted it to be a little bit more of that like mom brand.
Yep, love it.
I think that's a compliment if you say mom brand.
100%.
And so that was like a little bit of a line in there. It's the collagen, which I love. Hair, skin, and nails for me is, especially when you're having kids and you're just losing all your hair and they're taking everything from you, anything that you can like pump back in your body. Then the greens, of course, are great. I had tried, but when we created those, I had been taking greens from random brands for years, and they just never tasted good. And I would force them into my water bottle and force myself to drink them because they're so healthy for you, and like just adding that supplement. And so the greens, the amount of people I've made try the greens, and I'm like, trust me, they're so good, and they taste them. It doesn't taste like greens. It looks like greens, doesn't taste like greens.
I always tell people that greens usually taste like you're licking the bottom of a lawnmower. Exactly. Not that I've done that, but they just kind of what I imagine. But these don't, right? They're so delicious. They taste like
strawberry, and it really, if you took it in a bottle like this where your brain didn't tell you it was going to taste bad because of the color, you would have no idea. It's not like a strawberry juice, which is amazing. I don't know what sort of like magic is happening, but and then obviously we have the protein, we have the Ignite Light, which has been a huge one for me too. So I take Ignite, just like a regular Ignite from y'all, before I work out. I use that as my pre-workout. I feel like it's like enough for me. But then in the afternoon sometimes, or like later in the mornings, I don't necessarily want a whole bunch of caffeine, but I want a little bit more. And so the Ignite Light is perfect. That's awesome. I just take a scoop of that. We take, honestly, I've gone through, I would say probably about 80% of your line over the years that I've taken. There's probably 20% that maybe is not the stuff I've tried, but my husband Tim will take it. And you kind of have everything covered, which
oh, that's good. That's
anything
awesome.
You need in like health and lifestyle is you guys have in your line.
That's awesome. Well, good. No, we'll do a little giveaway with the launch of this podcast episode. And maybe we'll do a handful of people with the Eva Shockey series of product.
It was hard to get for a while there. People were coming to me like, "It's all sold out." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, because you guys keep buying it."
Which is a good thing,
I know,
right?
it's hard to complain about that. Like, it's obviously great, but also I'm sorry, and it's coming back. And
it's interesting when you think of growing pains. Sometimes you don't think of like when you're being out of stock on the product. It's like, no, that there are some pains in bringing on new customers and having them buy more than we expected, and it's like, oh my goodness, are we gonna have enough? But yeah, it does super well. We love the partnership with you, Eva, and what you represent as well. I feel like whenever there's a partnership where the core values align, then there's longevity in that. And we, at times in life you have some that the core values just don't line up, and then it's kind of short-lived. But we've been working together for a long time now, and we appreciate it. I actually had an opportunity. I think I messaged you about it a few years ago. I got to go visit with your parents, and this was right before COVID. My wife and I flew up there. I thought it was interesting because your dad had said, "Hey, we don't get many of the CEOs of partnerships that we have up here." They had, is it Tim from Leopold? And they talked about that. And honestly, we just thought we were going up. We'd have a quick dinner with them. We'd go to the Hahnemann Museum. We'd do a little interview with him there. And then we were going to give away an experience up to the Hahnemann Museum. And so we had like 2 hours planned with your parents one night. And then the rest of the time we were just going to tour around, the island and see some things. Went to dinner. Your family you just know how to take care of people, right? The Shockeys are just good at hosting, right? Yeah, it's the gift of hosting, I guess it would be. But they just made us feel right at home. We had a good dinner right on this water. I don't know I can't remember the restaurant, but
Genoa Bay Cafe probably, or there's a few.
One of the ones
it's on
they
an
go
island,
to.
so
Yeah.
there's a couple that the masthead. There's a few over there that are
incredible. Went to the Hahnemann Museum. Ended up spending a few hours there, and we just thought we don't have time to interview now because we've gone through all this. He gave us a really detailed tour.
You
It was
can't go
awesome.
there for less than.
Oh, we went back the next day and spent more time.
You need to, otherwise you feel like you barely saw anything.
It was incredible. I had no idea that it even existed. And then we sat down and did this interview. But what I loved about your parents was they went from thinking we'd be with them for a couple hours to spending a couple days with us. And I'm horrible at golf, but your dad took me out golfing. I got to golf with Jim Shockey, and he had clubs that he let me use, and
my mom's.
They were probably your mom's. And I remember driving to the golf club, and he turned on one of his new songs that he was coming out with, and I'm like, man, you got.
Of course he did.
It was awesome, and then we golfed, but I was so embarrassed because I'm a horrible golfer. I may have picked one up and thrown it when he wasn't looking, but I remember I had a good shot, and he like just sung my praises. He's like, Trevor, that's how you do it, So he made me feel at ease, And while we were doing that, your mom was there was my wife and then another lady that was with us. She took them shopping. Sweet. And we came back to the house, and she's sitting there cooking dinner for us. And it was like, you don't need to do this. We'll go out if you guys want to go out. And she's like, no, I want to take care of you guys. So it was just this hospitality that I hadn't experienced before. And so I was super impressed. And then we got the opportunity to sit down and talk to your dad and just ask him questions, on camera, and so that we could do this giveaway. And then the interview went about 2 hours. And I used some of the things he said in that interview so many times. I'm speaking a lot more now. And one of them is to let time do the hard work. And sometimes through the process of even having a loved one that passes, like there's this time that you need to let do the hard work. It's just difficult. At the end of the interview, I asked him, Jim, we've just gone through this museum, so many incredible things, so much to look back on and say, wow, you've been to pretty much every place you can go in this world, hunted pretty much any animal. And what's your greatest accomplishment? And I had in my mind what I hoped he would say. and he nailed it. And he said, you know what Luis and I have created is incredible. What I've done, you've looked around this museum, people and places and things that most people don't get to experience, and it's amazing. My life has been amazing, but all of this pales in comparison to what Luis and I have created with our children. And I was just like, yes, this is, you're looking at the godfather of the hunting industry, and he brings it back to relationships that matter most, and the joy and the the pride that he has in his children and that creation with your mother. And I just loved what he mentioned there. So I want to talk about that family unit, those relationships. Like, what was your upbringing like? Was it always hunting? Was it all? What did you guys do? What did you experience? These relationships that mattered so much to your dad and to your mom, and I know they matter to you as well with your brother and your parents. Like, what was it like growing up in the Shockey household?
Yeah, family is absolutely number one growing up. Now in my new family unit with my husband and our kids, it's number one, and I feel like I will sing that to the day I die. That's like really ultimately family, God, like that's all I really care about. The rest is great and it's fun and it keeps you busy or makes you money and you can buy a house or go on a trip, and like I do really enjoy those things, but ultimately all I really care about is my family unit. Like everything else can go away, and if you have your health and your family and your faith, like what else, what else actually matters? My family growing up, it was kind of unique. Well, it was probably super unique, I guess.
Very unique.
I didn't realize how bizarre my dad's job was until I remember in high school. There was no social media. There was no, no one really knew what he did. Honestly, I barely knew what he did. Like, he just traveled. He was my dad. He had a job. He traveled. He wrote articles, like outdoor articles a lot. He was always on the go. There was always a camera crew around our house. And in high school, people started being like, I heard about your dad or I saw him on TV or something, and it was kind of like, oh, whatever. And then university, I went to Australia, and some people had heard of my dad there, and I was like, what is happening? I'm from a small town in Canada. Why do people care about my dad in Australia? And that was right around when social media started, and I knew what he did was cool. I just didn't know that other people really knew about it or cared about it. Yeah, kind of. I think outside of the really serious endemic hunting community. We would go to the trade shows, and of course I was aware that he was important there in the hunting community, but I didn't realize it expanded further than that. So it was just something which I'm glad, because I don't think you should really idolize anyone or think anyone what they like. We're all the same. We're all built the same. We're all from the same.
That's what I love about your family too, is I went there kind of anxious, a little nervous to go meet Jim and Louise Shockey. Honestly, I get nervous for Eva Shockey to come to Mountain Ops, but you guys are so grounded and humble in your approach too. Is that just the way you were raised? And
I just don't know how else you would be.
Well, there's not.
I don't
there's
know.
People
what do you
aren't
congratulate yourself that you can go hunt? We've had really cool opportunities. My dad has worked very hard, and the whole quote about let time do the hard work. I mean, he's worked very hard for a lot of years, and that's just something that is in his spirit, and that's who he is in his soul. That's what he wants to do. But a lot of it has been opportunities from God and timing. And I mean, he met my mom at the perfect time, and then they had kids, all those things that's what I believe in. They were all meant to happen, and he was meant to have this presence and influence on the hunting community, because he has a really good message, and it's a really positive message, and there's lots of other people that maybe wouldn't have used it for that. And I think, he spread the message of family and all the kind of things and outdoors and wildlife and field to table, all the things I think are really important. But growing up, my mom, you probably heard the story when you were there, but my mom was a vegetarian ballerina when they met, and he was a antique dealer. He had really cool antique stores. And I'll go through it really quick. But to give you a backstory, I did not grow up hunting personally because for a few reasons. My mom was whatever tiny little step away from an anti-hunter. That's what she was. Wasn't an anti-hunter, but definitely wouldn't watch his hunting shows. As soon as he got towards shooting something, she would get up and leave. If there was a fly, she would catch it and let it go into the wild. That was what she was the softest, most feminine. And then obviously my dad was this rugged mountain man, and I was like, what is happening? Who do I look up to? Which ended up being both of them, of course. But so my mom was not a vegetarian once I was born. She ate meat, cooked meat, but still just very gentle and soft-hearted. And so I didn't know any females that hunted. There was no social media. We were on a small town, never really watched TV. If we did, I don't think we had in Canada. We didn't have Outdoor Channel at the time. So I did not know that was even really a thing. And so when my dad would ask me to hunt, which he would, my idea was no, like I want to be a feminine, or like I was athletic. I was like, I want to be more like my mom than like my dad. Why would I want to be like masculine like my dad? It just didn't make sense at the time. I mean, this is like the 90s. And so until I grew up, I was a competitive dancer, did all that kind of stuff. We traveled a lot. So I think that is where I'm very, very grateful for that. We traveled a lot. I was put in the hunting situations with my dad on hunts, family trips, always were just masked hunts for my dad, and they were like vacations, but really it was a hunting trip. And I was exposed to that, but I was never pushed to do it. I was never forced to shoot something. I knew how to shoot guns. I shot a bow for fun, but again, it just wasn't really my thing, because I really thought it wasn't for girls, which it kills me that was a mindset, and that was a huge part of why I did what I did for so long, to try to expose girls to it and say how normal it was, and teach a lot of people, because I didn't know this. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you wear makeup. Like, I'm very feminine, and that is okay to also be able to put on camo and go hunt a mountain and have the best time and be a hunter, but then go home and shower and do your hair, like that's okay. And I think that was a message that was really missing for a long time. And so when I went to university, at this point I still didn't hunt. I went in Australia. And when I was there, I remember so clearly, I was at the grocery store buying food for the first time in my life, because I just left home, and went and had to go buy meat. And I didn't know what to buy, because I'd only ever had wild game. Like, I had no recollection of my mom ever buying anything meat-wise at the grocery store. Had to go to the counter. And I mean, I can basically remember what the guy looked like. And he probably thought I was, like, born under a rock. And I'm like, I need to buy meat to cook. He's like, okay, what would you like? I was like, I have no idea. And then he gave me something, and it was so expensive. And I'm like, where did this come from? Like, why? I have no connection to this meat at all. And so I went through university and obviously did that. It was fun. And I came back, I graduated, and I said to my dad, I want to learn how to hunt, because I want to fill my freezer. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I might do it once and never do it again, but I'm old enough now. And he also had stopped asking me to come hunting. And I think for me, I'm like a strong personality. Like, okay, now it's on my, it's on my terms now. It's my idea. And so I came back, I said, I want to learn how to hunt. And he was at his desk writing an article or something, and his jaw, I swear, almost touched the floor. And he was like, what? I was 21. He thought I was like a goner. Like, he thought there was no chance I was ever going to hunt. And he was like, well, I'm going to South Africa in about a month. I just graduated. I had nothing going on. And he's like, he had me booked, I swear, that day. And then awesome. In that month, I had to go do my gun course and my hunting course and all this stuff.
Do you remember what year this was?
2008.
Okay. That's awesome.
I graduated 07, end of 07. And this would have been January 08, and we went in like March or something of 08. And so I had to go learn. And then I didn't want to do the hunting course by myself, because I'm like, I'm 21. It's going to be all these 12-year-olds, which it wasn't. But in my head, I was still like very, very nervous. The idea of it, I was like, I'm going way against the grain. My friends who knew me were like, you're doing what? I was a dancer. Like, they're like, awesome. You're going to take your hunting course. And so I forced my mom to take it with me. Or I didn't force her. I asked her. She was such a good sport. She's like, sure. She knew nothing about hunting. Like, if I knew nothing, she so knew less than nothing. Wow. And so these two, and then like the two Shockey girls, a couple of the people in our town knew my family, and were like, these two know nothing about guns and hunting. And we took the course, and this is one more quick story. This is my mom. She was so sweet. Not only did she know nothing, she also like hadn't studied in 30 years. Like, didn't really, just was like, la la la, this is so fun. Learned a bunch of stuff. I had just cut out of university, so I studied the book, and of course was like going to do well, but we only bought one book, so I kind of had it. So when she went to do the test, you had to go in for an interview part where they actually verbally asked you questions.
Interesting.
And she came out and she said, oh yeah, she told them, they talked about my dad, and she was going to go drop him off some DVDs or something, like the guy who ran the course, and she got 100%, and I got like 99%. I was like, there's no way that, like, it's because you awesome. Gave him DVDs. Yep. So anyways, we went on our first hunt, and
did she hunt with you?
No, she did not, but she
was there.
I mean, she cried more than I did, because her little dancer was hunting, and she still was like, are we sure this is a good idea? But she came on the hunt. She was the photographer.
Cool.
I mean, we had a photographer.
Right.
She was the mom photographer.
Yep.
And I shot a warthog on my first trip. We were just talking. Your
Yep.
first trip
Was Africa
was
as
South
well?
Africa.
Yeah.
I shot a warthog, and with a muzzleloader, I had no idea
Wow.
what to expect. I truly wasn't sure. Like, I'm gonna pull the trigger. I didn't even know if I would, but when I did, would I ever do it again? I don't know. And I shot it. And it was like that night we went back to camp, and we skinned and ate the warthog for dinner. We ate some of the meat for dinner. And I remember that night my whole world exploded. Like, I knew where meat came from, and I did very much appreciate that process and the feel at the table. But it was always someone else, my dad, doing it. Doing it yourself is like, that was one of the coolest days of my life. And I was like, done. So awesome. I'm a hunter. I get it. This makes so much sense. And then
the rest is history.
The rest is history.
That is incredible. Such a cool story. I had no idea that it was after college that you started.
Mm-hmm. We had hunted a couple like little like groundhogs and little silly things, but nothing that was not a real hunt.
Yeah.
It just, I wish I'd started younger, but then again, my story would be so much different.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
And also when I started hunting when I was 21, if you would have let me had a choice, I would never have had it filmed. Like a 21 on your first hunt, like very vulnerable and like, that out of my comfort zone. Never would I have wanted it to be filmed.
Right.
But it was a family business, and we filmed our hunting shows, and my dad was not about to let me go do my first hunt and not put it on his show.
That's awesome.
So it was one of those, I didn't necessarily want to be in front of the camera, and I was used to it, but I didn't want to be, and filmed all the hunts, and it was just like God's plans were not my plans, but it ended up being. And then eventually within the year, those episodes were doing the best because it was me and my dad with our personalities, and me being like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try, and us laughing. So cool. And I think a lot of people related to that. They had someone in their life that had that personality or that relationship, and ended up being, I guess, just the path I stayed on without necessarily knowing that's where I was going to be.
How cool. Wow. That's incredible. What an adventure. I remember meeting you for the first time at the Hunt Expo, and I remember my daughters who were dancers, like looking at you and thinking, she's this hunter, and they wanted to do it. So we took them on a bear hunt for their first hunt. And then, my wife wanted to do it. So we took her to Alaska. And so you have paved this way, and you've led by example. And then even my mom, we got her into it a couple years ago and took her out on an elk hunt. Cool. And my dad was able to be there. And she, like, right after, she was like, can we do this again tomorrow? For her, it was in her blood. But she grew up in a family where it was just the men went out and did it. Mm-hmm. They brought the meat home. She loved the deer and elk. And I have pictures of her, holding a rifle up or holding an elk rack up. And I was like, Mom, did you hunt? And she's like, no, I just like to take pictures when they came home. And I was like, well, we're going to take you out. And she's like me doing the hunting? And so she had never even pulled the trigger on a gun until she pulled that one. I trained her just by doing the dry fire, and she was clicking. She's like, that's all it's going to do? And I was like, yep, it's not. It just, that's it. So, we've had some incredible experiences, but for me, it's like when I got into it, if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it as a family as well. So I didn't want one more thing to take me away from them. And so we looked at it as a family, and I loved how my daughters just like gravitated, each of them in a different way, wanted to hunt in a different way, but they've all loved it, and it's been incredible. So thank you for setting the example and paving the way, and letting these cute dancing girls know that it is good and it's okay to go out and conquer the mountain, and then also go into the dance studio and conquer the dance studio, you know?
And I think that is, it must have been in my blood before, or in my personality, it just hadn't really come out, but I actually love that about it. I love that it's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
People think it is. It's very confusing for some people when they look at you. And I used to be a full dancer, and then would go hunting, and then I'd come back and I'd teach dance the next day. But I love that you can do all that. I love that people now they could have before. I'm sure there was a lot doing it. And that's another thing. It's not like I was the first girl that hunted. Of course, there was already girls in the industry. There were already so many girls out there. There wasn't the social networking that we have now, where people can share it and embrace it all around the world, no matter where you are. But I think I remember meeting your daughters when they were young. I remember you bringing them up to me, and that really was one of the coolest things, because again, at this point I was in my early 20s. My confidence was more than it was when I was 12, 13, 16, 18, and I was like, why not do this? Like,
Yeah.
prove that you can do both of these things. I think that's even cooler than having just one lane. Like,
I
you can do
agree.
this. And when before, at the very beginning of this interview, I think I said I was above average on a lot of things. And what I meant is I'm slightly above average on a lot of things, but I'm not like great at anything. Like, I'm not,
Yeah,
my husband was a
you're
professional
selling
hockey
yourself
player.
short.
He is great at that. You know,
Yeah.
you're great at running a business and growing it. I just love a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can fit into a lot of different buckets. And for me, we all have different personalities. We're all good at different things. Like, that's actually a great thing.
Yeah.
And that really goes back to, I could be a dancer and I can really love that and enjoy it and be passionate, but I can also be a hunter, and you don't
Yeah.
have to pick one. And I think little girls, when they used to come up to me, or they still do at events, people bring their daughters up or their girlfriends or their wives. And that's just the most fulfilling thing, trying to pour in a little bit of
Yeah.
that message to them, and like hopefully maybe something will stick, and
Yeah.
that'll change the course where they'll actually feel the confidence to, maybe it's not hunting, maybe it's something else, but they can go do that thing just because they look a little different, or people wouldn't expect it
Yeah.
from them to do that.
I think it's awesome. I think what you're portraying to the world is that you're living life, and
Yeah.
you're living it to the fullest. You're seizing the moments, and it's okay to enjoy different aspects of life, different channels of life. And did you always want to be a mother? Did you? I know this is a Mother's Day podcast. I want to dive into that because you were so, it seemed like so heavy into the hunt, and then all of a sudden you're adding on like the family aspect of it, and yeah, the mom blog. They just kind of took off, and there's a lot of that happening here in Utah, and but you influence women and families in a major way, and you're influencing them from an outdoor perspective, but from a, here I am in my home. You posted a reel, I think it was a couple days ago, and I told my wife, look at what's going on. It was like, I told Tim or something like this, is a voiceover, I think, that I wanted to start and doing sourdough bread. What that really meant was, now I'm going to have chickens, and I'm going to have a farm and a coop and all this stuff. It's funny because my wife just started doing sourdough about 3 weeks ago. And we've had the chickens and the goats. We kind of did it in reverse. We did the chickens, goats, bunnies, all this, dogs. And now we're doing sourdough.
Bread.
Now we're going to the,
So
we're like, maybe bread is.
Maybe you're safe at this point, because that's the end. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, now I need everything.
But you're such a great example as a mother. Is that something you always desired to be?
My mom was the best mom. A lot of people had the best mom, but I really had the best mom. Loved everything about how she raised me. I was voted, in high school, and you're voted certain things, you were probably like
best dancer.
Like, see, were the best dancer.
I was best. I was like, huh? I just moved my body weird.
We need to make sure we see this at the end. I was voted first to get married and have kids.
Okay.
And if I would have lived in Utah, I probably would have.
It would have happened when you were 18.
Earlier.
My wife was 18.
I did not meet I would have. That was my dream. I would
Yeah.
have loved. I am glad I didn't get married at that age, where I was in life and whatever.
Yeah.
I did not meet my husband until I was 24, 25. And we immediately knew we were going to get married.
Yeah.
Like, immediately.
That's awesome.
So I would have loved to do it earlier, but that was not God's plan, and I wouldn't have had all these experiences otherwise. But I always wanted to be a mom. Everyone knew that. That was my goal. I also always thought I was going to be a full stay-at-home mom. I had no intention of having a career. And this kind of goes back to, I didn't really want to be filmed, but I was filmed because it was my family business. And it wasn't like it was against my will. I was like, that was just expected. Of course, that's my dad's job. That's what we're doing. And it just turned into something that was such a beautiful lifestyle. Yeah. By the time I had kids, I was already very much in the outdoor space. Right. Very much it was a career. And I just loved it so much. And that's why it was a career. I think that it did well was because it was so enjoyable and I was so passionate about it. So then once the kids were always the plan. If I had to choose, of course, I would drop everything, keep the kids, and want to do the mother thing. But it turned a little bit more into, when it is an outdoor lifestyle and it is a 365-day a year thing, and good or bad social media, obviously it has its bads and cons, but it also has a lot of pros. The fact that I can still be sharing it, and I'm a mom, 100% of the time, but 90% of my day is momming, and 10% is the other stuff. And sometimes that 10% looks like it's more because it's on social media. You can spread it out. You can make reels, videos, whatever. It's gone over the years. But it's been nice because how we live our outdoor lifestyle, and we have field to table, and we stay fit and healthy, and we work out, and we are out in the wilderness and bring our kids out, that doesn't have to stop. That like
Right.
why would it stop just because you have kids? Because those things are how we want to raise our kids. So it's kind of turned into this beautiful relationship that, what's the word, symbiotic,
Yeah, that's awesome.
where it's gone
Yeah.
together. I really thought when before I had my daughter, who's my oldest, I had my career going, and I was on magazines and doing all these cool
Yeah.
events. Like, it was a very fun stage of life, and it was very busy, and it was great. I was just so lucky to be where I was, or blessed to be where I was. And I thought once I had my kids, I'm like, I'm going to lose all my followers. I'm going to lose, no one's going to want to hear about this, because they were used to me hunting all over the world and doing all these crazy things. And when I had my daughter, it was really wild to see that people were so much more into that because they could relate to that. Like, not a lot of people can relate to a 25-year-old traveling to Africa and Australia and New Zealand. A lot of people can relate to a 27-year-old having a baby and being like, what just happened?
Yeah.
What happened to my body? I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, when do I go hunting? When do I work out? Like, that's what people can relate to. And so it was just a really beautiful journey of trying to figure that out and then just sharing it the whole time. And now, again, it goes up and down. Some days I feel like I'm nailing it. Other days I'm like, what happened? Where am I? But having the kids along the process and sharing that with a lot of people on social media has been a really fun thing. And I think a lot of people feel like they're part of our family,
Yeah,
which
I
I
think
love.
so.
And I've had that my whole life. I've had people watching our family hunting DVDs and VHSs since I was 5 years old. So people feel like they know us. And that is so cool. You go
They're
places.
just watching the generations,
and
right?
we were just last night at an event, and they were talking about my grandpas. They're telling stories about my grandpas to me because they used to watch them. I'm like, that is so.
That's
yeah,
so cool.
it's what a crazy world we're in now, where that's what you can do. But
and to have that all recorded for and it was, so when I started hunting, it was when we started Mountain Ops, and then it was to South Africa, and there was always a camera along, and I was a little nervous at first, and still I'm like, oh, did I say that right, or did I, but I have all those memories to look back on, and that my kids can look back on and share with their kids, and I don't want that to end. I'm not a Shockey, but we've recorded all these for our family, and that history is incredible to be able to share. So
I was just saying that last night. They said the fact that my grandparents got to impact other people's families because they were hilarious. My two grandpas were great. But then also, selfishly, I have all this footage of, why else would I ever have footage of me and them when I was, 18 in the back of the truck and on a bear hunt? Like, we never would have had that. And I can't say I've necessarily gone and watched it. I've probably watched it a handful of times over the years, but it's something that we have. And then again, with our family, and that's such a big part. Social media gets me a little bit because I have so many memories of my kids, and I try to remember to not just do social media videos, because I'm like, oh, I'm videoing them. I'm like, but no, let me actually do a proper video on my camera with really focused, not just trying to do a quick story, because I don't want to have, when they're older, they're like, why are they all 15 seconds with writing on them?
So funny.
It's a different time now, but
that's
we're
awesome.
figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. What has there been anything about motherhood that surprised you, where it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting this, or that's like been overly surprising or difficult or anything?
Like everything. It's been harder than I expected.
Yeah.
I've always kind of prided myself on being able to handle a lot of things. That is who I am. I'm like, give it to me. I will figure it out, and we'll sort it out. We'll organize it, and then we'll solve it. That's just who I am. Which there's probably a lot to unpack there, that I feel like I can solve everything. You don't really solve motherhood. Kids do what they're gonna do when they're gonna do it. They're their own little humans. Obviously, you raise them how you hope for them to turn into good people. Yeah. And Tim, my husband, and I, we pretty strict, but lots of respect, lots of rules. But sometimes I'm like, what? It's like they've never had a parent. Like, who is this child? So I think it's surprised me a lot. You can control a lot of things in life. You can't necessarily control your child, and you just have to do your best and instill what you can instill, and try to parent as best as you can. But you, at the end of the day, you can't necessarily control them, and that's not having that is hard sometimes. We also moved to North Carolina, and all of our family was in Canada, so I think that was hard, because as I've gotten older, the more I hear about it, the family and I feel like you guys in Utah do a very good job of this. Lots of family around.
Yeah.
Like your family dynamic is meant to have more family.
Yeah.
It's meant to not just be the mom with the kids and the dad goes to work and no one else around. And that's kind of what we did. And we did it on our own will. And so it's always been hard because there's no one to blame but us. But we love living there. But that was always hard with the, like the in-laws and stuff and the grandparents that would have to come travel and then they'd leave and everyone would cry and, but it probably makes you stronger as a family unit too, because we rely on each other so much for what we need.
And then the time when you are with those in-laws or your dad coming in, like you're probably more intentional with that time, whereas opposed to living close together, you sometimes like, okay, I'm going to swing by and drop something off at this and that.
It's true.
You might spend more time that
true.
way
It is
where
true,
you're at a distance, but
you spend a lot of time and then you're like, okay, we're
okay, now go home.
Like we need a guest house or something. But yeah,
awesome.
it's I mean, there's so many things that have surprised me. I think also been very grateful for my parents, how they raised me, what they went out of their way to do. One of the things was bringing my brother and I on trips and hunts, because now that I'm the age where my husband and I go on those, it's a lot easier to just go the two of us. And it's really enjoyable to get away and me and him go away on a hunt. But we also are very aware of, like, these are the years that you get the kids used to doing those kind of things. You're in camp and you're hiking and you make it's more about them. And you have to take a little bit of the selfishness away because it's easier for me and Tim to go hike a mountain than to bring a 5 and an 8-year-old. But those are the years I remember going with my family and being exposed to that and getting used to that, so that's how you grow your love for it. And so you have to share it with your kids and not just keep it gatekeep it for yourselves. So I think that's something.
I feel like you guys are doing a great job balancing that, because I even saw one of your posts the other day talked about, like, somebody was asking you, hey, you're traveling and Tim's not with you, how do you get, and you're like, well, it's good for us to have some time. Absence does make the heart grow fonder, and so you're coming back like wanting to be back with each other, but it's also good for your kids to see, like, hey, mom's going to do this and she's living life and she's, I want to have that kind of, I don't know, that excitement in my life, and dad's doing this. Even, this year the Farnes Brent families are coming together on a couple trips. You're going to Alaska with my wife, I'm going to South Africa with your husband. It's kind of fun, and I think it's good to, what I've found is I want my kids to be with us as much as possible and give them that time and attention, but I have found that they do need to see me and Jenna going off to do our thing together, and then even separate at times. And so that they know that in the future that's okay, and that children can be your universe and all this, but then that foundation with the spouse, with your spouse, that's who you'll be with once the kids are grown up. And so building that relationship is so important for you guys, but also then showing your kids that that's incredibly important for their future as well.
Yeah, and showing them, I think, for me personally, my husband he was a pro hockey player for years, so he had this big career. I mean, mine wasn't that big, but it was a big career too. Lots of like excitement and lots of stuff going on. And then, we had the babies, and my husband went into real estate, but still like busy and whatever. And I was having the babies and being at home, and which is all so beautiful. Not always like pretty, but beautiful. Yeah. And my kids got to the point a little bit where they're like, oh, daddy hunts, mommy doesn't know how to hunt. Or like, I want daddy to show me how to do this. I'm like, okay, guys. Like, not that Tim can't, because he's great. He's a better hunter than I am. But the fact that they didn't know that mommy can do other stuff, there was like a couple times, maybe a few years ago, and I was like, okay, I get it. Of course. Why would you think mommy can do anything else? Because all you see is her doing this. Yeah. But it kind of shocked me and put me a little back into reality. And I think leading by example of like a strong female, I think that's really important. Not that my mom was not strong, because she was very strong in a very like elegant way, but she did give up everything for us, and that was so beautiful. And honestly, maybe I'm messing up my kids by not giving up absolutely everything for them, but I truly think what I'm doing, where I still have something for myself, and that is important to show the kids. Mommy has to go away. Mommy has a job. Mommy helps pay the bills. This is how we go on trips. Mommy loves what she does. She's impacting other people and helping them get healthier and XYZ. But then mommy's coming back, and I'll miss you, and I'll come back, and I'm so excited to see you. And like, that's the message. And it's not only what they need 24/7, because I think that makes a little bit more resilience of they can figure it out, and they might be a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, they're with either my husband or someone we really trust, but I think it's also a good way to grow up and
Yeah.
learn a little bit of that. And also see my husband and I go on trips together, because it's very important for mommy and daddy go on trips. And do what we want to do because we love you guys, but it's not just about you guys.
Yeah.
It's about, if we didn't have a good, healthy marriage, it wouldn't be so good for where you guys are right now in this stage. And so, trying to figure out what's important to you, and whatever is important to you and your family isn't always what's the same in the next family, and not letting that family, how they do it, impact you. I think that's
so
also
true.
the dynamic we're constantly trying to figure out. It's just a lot more of a strategy than I thought.
Yeah.
Like, it is natural and it comes naturally, but I think the natural part is like when they're babies, it's just you're keeping them alive.
Yeah.
Now it's more like a chess game of like, this is what we want to do so that in 2 years. And also I was just talking about it, not so much about hunting at all, but social media and cameras and phones. It's my job, which I've been so grateful for. Now I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I don't know, I'm sure you've gone through this in your own, you're ahead of me on the girls. And she started being like, are you putting that on your Instagram? Or can I see the video? Or so-and-so's mom saw you on Instagram. And I'm like, whoa. Because I'm old enough to realize it could shut down tomorrow and nothing will change. Well, I mean, things will change, but like nothing, that's fine. Right. That's God's will. She's still like so vulnerable, and that scares. Yeah. If there's like one thing that scares me, it's that. It's like the video aspect. And that's another thing. I'm like, I should ask you, how do you guys navigate that? Have you figured out any secrets?
No, just honestly, the thing that, especially with my daughter, well, with my son as well, it's trying to drive home their value as much as possible, and then finding that value in the right places, so that when they get on their phone and they see social media and they see this girl's doing this and this girl's saying that, and they're not kind of thinking, well, am I this? Am I that? Do I, so for me, and for my wife, it's really trying to help them understand that they are of divine worth and that they have this incredible value, so that they're not influenced by the world that's influencing so many and distracting so many people on social media and on their phones. And because it gets scary, especially into like junior high was brutal.
What ages are your oldest?
So 20 is my oldest.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, that was
crazy.
Wild.
When she met you, she was probably 12, So she's in Brazil on a mission, out on her own now. She's been out for a year. We haven't seen her in a year. Difficult.
Your missions are just... I have a lot of friends that their kids are either on missions or about to go on missions, and it is incredible what you guys...
And the way that her life is changing right now is, and it comes back to her finding this value, and it comes back through connection with God. And so that's what we've really tried to focus on in our home, is this is where we find our value. And value is, you come up with value based off of what someone's willing to pay for something, right? And so we always try to drive home that the most valuable blood was given for you. And there's a God who created you. And so when all these distractions come their way, hopefully they remember those words of their mother and their father, that their value is that. It's not what somebody's saying on social media. You don't have to be, what this person's doing. There might be a good influence that you do want to follow, And so
being able to decipher, and
have
what that is.
Be source critical. There's so much coming at all of us, but at these youth, there it's like, hey, be very source critical. And if you're not sure, please come to your parents. Come talk to us, and let us point you to where you will understand your value. So we've just tried to focus on that. She's 20. The next one's 18, about to graduate from high school. And in September, she'll put in her mission paperwork to go. It's hard. I could say that when my daughter left to Brazil, the feeling that I could compare it to most was when my father passed away. Just this weight and this pain of like, wow, this separation is more difficult than I expected. With her, I knew she'll come back in a year and a half. With my dad, I'm thinking there will be a reunion, gratefully, but I don't know when that will be, But with my daughter, it was heartbreaking to send her away.
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. I mean, some days I'm like, I could send her away for
there's moments
week.
there, right? But it's so good for them, what they experience out there. And so she's doing incredibly well. And my senior daughter, she's super excited to go out and do the same thing, and she's ready for it. And then Beckham, he's in that age where the junior high age where it's difficult, but it was more difficult for our daughters than it has been for him. He's just, the boys, they're just
different.
They're just different. They're tough and they'll get through it. And they, the girls are internalizing everything and comparing everything. And girls get a little mean during junior high. The friends, I was like, wow, they shouldn't be your friends anymore, And
how do you not see this?
yeah, it's crazy. But then I've got Savvy, who's 11. So we're still, and I feel like she'll hopefully get either the best of me and Jenna, or she'll get the worn down me and Jenna,
She'll get the best. The most wise and experienced version.
But we've all just raised each other because, Jenna was 18, I was 21 when we got married, and then we had our first baby, and it's like, hey, let's all just figure this life out, and it's great. It's
maybe it's better at that age because you're maybe a little less aware of everything. Like at 37, maybe at 27, if I had the same age kids, I would have not been like thinking so hard about it and just being like, this is what makes sense, this is for us, this is perfect. Right now I'm like, there's so many options, there's so many directions to go, I don't know what to do. I don't know, it's probably, I would imagine it's very hard in a lot of ways, but like the most rewarding thing. I agree. One of those, like, what else do you pick that's so hard, but it's also the absolute best?
I agree. So maybe talk to that a little bit. What's been the greatest joy of being a mother for you? Like, where does that come? Where do those moments happen?
Oh my gosh. Everything that seeing them wake up and their little personality that day is just slightly different than the day before. You never know, especially with my daughter, you never quite know what you're going to get. The boys and girls, like you're saying, are just very different. My son wakes up, big smile, runs everywhere, like jogs out of bed, never stops jogging until he goes to bed, mostly happy all the time, plays sports. My daughter internalizes and she's very aware, and I have to treat her more like an adult because she thinks through everything, and I'm like, she's a little version of me, but smarter and probably more. Again, my mom was so sweet and so elegant and so soft. She didn't necessarily instill like a strong, I don't know, female like strong, and I'm like that. And so my daughter is me, who was a little tough, plus way smarter than I ever was, plus has a mom who's like a strong mom, like a strong female. That's awesome. And I'm like, oh, she is going to
she's gonna be the president of the United States.
I don't know what she's gonna do. I'm like, we gotta keep her on the like straight and narrow. Awesome. The rewarding things is all the hard work and all the nights you don't sleep and all the things you try to figure out. Then they go do something, or someone says they said something to them, and you're like, oh, they were listening that whole time, and they're watching everything. And even when you don't think that your advice is, they're doing something and they're ignoring you, and you're like getting heated because they're not paying attention, a month later they basically reenact what you said to them, and you're like, oh wow, they cool. do care a lot, or my parenting is very important, and that's something that is, I guess it's rewarding, because when it's so hard, you want to feel like someone's listening. Right. This is working in some respect. I think our kids are both wonderful. They will talk about God randomly, and that's one of my favorite things. They'll just randomly, Boone will say, it'll be about a basketball shot, and he'll get it, and he'll be like, yes, I pray to God that I would get that in. Awesome. And like the silliest little things, but like for a 5-year-old, that's a big, the fact that he went to God and was like, and I've had to explain to him, like, God has timing. It might be a yes, it might be a no, it might be a wait. And lots of times it's a wait. It's not going to be, your shot's not going to go in like that time every time. And he's like, what? Why would it not? I don't know. Just seeing these little humans, it just baffles my brain every single day that like those babies were in here. Yeah. And then we look at photos. I don't know if my kids go to sleep and I'm like exhausted. And about 10 minutes later, I'm like, let me look at pictures. I missed them so much. Had a hard night with them. And I'm like, then I'm scrolling through photos. But watching just the beauty of just the creation of these little babies and them growing and changing and keeping you on your toes, I think it makes us put ourselves second as well, and not everything is what we want right when we want it. Again, back to the control thing. Like, you can only keep things under control to a certain extent, and you just have to lead with your heart and do what you think is the best thing for them, and where, like, the ultimate goal, like, that's where we want to get. We want to get this God-loving human who loves their family, who is kind to people, who is strong and secure and brave and smart and all the things that you want, this little bundle. And, like, every day there's new experiences that are really ultimately leading either to there or to not there.
Not there, yeah. How do you incorporate God into your family dynamic and faith and teaching your children about that?
It's kind of just an ongoing thing. Faith for me has been a really interesting journey because it was not part of my life growing up. It was not, again, I to this day, I'm not really exactly sure what it was. My mom grew up Catholic, not the best experiences. My dad grew up in the prairies. I don't know, just like farm boy. So like no real faith in his life growing up. And then I grew up sort of, my mom, everyone was very spiritual, but I did not grow up. Now I live in the South now. So every one of my friends grew up going to Sunday school, midweek, youth group. Their parents were pastors. I mean, that's just their life. So they know that whole world. I was not from that. And honestly, my husband really wasn't from that either. And so my journey to faith has been unique, I guess, just in my own way, that when I was 7, I asked my mom to go to Sunday school and we never went to church. We would go to church on Easter and Christmas, but never really went to church. And I asked her to go to Sunday school, and she was very spiritual and like was always open to going to church, but my brother didn't want to go. My dad didn't really want to go. And so she would drop me at Sunday school because she always had my brother, and I would go to Sunday school and she'd pick me up. And I just, for whatever reason, now that I'm older, someone actually said that was because God was leading you there. I've always been like, I wanted to go, but like, of course it wasn't me. It was God being like, go to Sunday school. And then I moved to Vancouver, which is on the West Coast. Very like, church is not a thing there. It's very uncommon. It is same with where I'm from. I had one friend I knew whose family went to church. Like, it's just a different, now it might be different, but when I grew up, it was not. Vancouver, I had to like search for a church to go to. Found a church. I was in my 20s. All my friends were like, you're doing what? Like, just absolute, again, against the grain of what people were expecting from me. Very similar to the hunting and so many moving to Australia and moving to North Carolina. Like, that's just who I've always been. Again, God created this in me. And I found a church. I started going to church didn't know anybody. I mean, just weird stuff like that I've just my whole life kind of done. Got to know God more, but still like so many questions because I didn't grow up with it. And I was like, what is happening? What are all these people doing? Still was like a little, like, I'm kind of like half in, half out. I don't even really remember. Eventually we moved to North Carolina, was with my husband, Tim, and settled more into like the faith-based lifestyle where like it was always in me, but it wasn't to the extent it is now. Now I've never felt so deeply rooted in it. So to answer your question in a really long way,
I love it.
I've been learning along with my kids a little bit because I don't have an experience of what it's like growing up with it. So trying to figure that out and what feels right to us. So like going to church, we go to church, that's great. But then my daughters are starting to go to midweek. They go to Christian school. So they learn things. And I've said to them, I said, when you come home, I asked them about what chapel was it? Like, what was that chapel? What did you learn? And they're like, nothing, oh, whatever, like what kids answer. And I've had to say to them, I really genuinely want you to teach me what you learned because mommy didn't learn that when I was your age. And I love that you're learning and I would love to learn it with you. They also do memory verses from the Bible that are so long. I can remember like maybe the first sentence, and my daughter's like, blah, 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 like goes on. And she goes, awesome. Why do you only remember the first sentence? I was like, because Lenny, mommy's brain is not quite as spongy as yours. So learning along with them, making it enjoyable. I think one of my biggest fears is forcing it so much where they step away from it. And that, happens all the time. I read some stat that was some giant number that kids step away from faith. And I really feel like it's very unwritten for me and my husband how to do it, how to incorporate it. So for us, it's almost like hunting where it's just part of you. It's so good. Part of, and also losing my mom was a really great, well, horrible, but a great opportunity to get so much closer to God through that process, but also to teach kids like what happened to her. Where is she? Where's Nana? And it was, well, she's an angel. She's with God. She's not in pain. She's with us at all times. She has signs. She's around us and surrounding us. And so that losing her, I've said a lot of times, I don't know how, if I didn't have that faith and belief, what I would have said to my kids. Where is this person? And you just never get to be near her again. Like that would have been really hard if that's what I thought. And so it's been a very big blessing to have the belief and faith that she's everywhere.
That's awesome.
And my kids now know that, and we talk to her all the time. And we were saying before, see the clouds do something weird, and we go, hi, Nana, or like a bird does a kind of a unique thing near us, and we go, it's Nana, hi, Nana, like just little things like that, you know. But yeah, so I hope that they think it's just very normal, and it's not some scary, intense thing. It's just
that's awesome.
How we were created and how to live.
You guys are doing it right. And, you know, as a co-creator with God, you and your husband now bringing these children into the mix. And then it's cool that you're all learning together. And the Bible says a little child shall lead them, you know? And so it's, I think we're told often to become like a little child. And so it's fun that you're learning and you're growing together that way. And especially when there's a loved one that passes. I know for me, having that hope through Jesus Christ was like a big comfort and a big peace in my life when my dad passed away. And for my daughter to go out on a mission, you know, she had to determine, like, why am I going to leave my family for this amount of time? And she was leaving right after my dad passed. And so she was like, I'm going to go help people feel exactly what you just mentioned, like some peace and hope that there is a plan. And that if they have a loved one that's passed or will pass in the future, they have some confidence in that plan. And so that gave her the courage to go out and say, yeah, I've got something, I've got a knowledge that other people in the world don't. I need to go share this, you know? So that's awesome. Let's dive into your mother and her life and who she was, who she is, and the example that she's set for you. We've heard a lot about she is a very eloquent, very gracious, very just a beautiful human being, right? And it's easy to see that. People know that about her. What are some characteristic traits that you've tried to adopt from your mother, where you're in your own motherhood or just in your life, where you're like, I want to be, my mother was this, and I want to be that as well?
There's a lot about my mom that I want to be, and my husband Tim and I always joke that I probably am about 80% my dad and 20% my mom, like in nature. Okay. But I'd rather be 80% my mom and 20%. We say this to my dad. He's very aware. Like, he knows. I got like the ratio was flipped on its head a little bit, which has taught me a lot about being very aware of my actions and how I react to things. My dad is like very intense, big personality, which I love. And I love that about myself, that I have a lot of those traits. That's why I've worked really hard and been really focused and dedicated. But I also, as a mother, which ultimately is like my main role and my main goal, and that's my purpose, is sometimes that personality is a little bit hard and like how I immediately want to react. And I'm like, no, channel your mom, be more like your mom. So she just like the most love. She just emanated love all the time. She welcomed everyone in. She cared deeply about everybody. Like she would go, I don't know, we get her a gift like massage for Mother's Day, and she would come out and the masseuse would be crying and they would be hugging, and I'm like, what just happened? And she's like, oh, I helped her with some family things. I'm like, what kind of person that just paid money for a massage then is the one that helps the person who's massaging them, kind of gives up your massage essentially and helps that person? Like, that's who my mom was all the time. And being able to channel some of that personality, it's not something I'm super proud of. That doesn't come as naturally to me. I'm more intense and like, that's just who I am. Again, God had good humor when he created me.
I think you're doing great.
I do care, but I'm also like, okay, like let's get there. So trying to soften a lot of what maybe like initially is what I am. And then that's, as I'm 37, it has now become a big part of me. It has slowly, I've had to sort of like teach myself, this is really what I want to be. Again, I'm like bashing my dad. He's great, but he's not a mom. He's not like a sweet, kind mother. And some of the things that my mom did, she was just very grateful for every little bit of beauty. And before losing her for really my whole 20s, she would tell me to slow down. She was like, you got to slow down. You have to, are you enjoying this? Are you finding time to appreciate things? Are you, because I'm like, next, let's accomplish this. Let's do the next thing. Let's accomplish this. Let's do the next thing. And honestly, never really stopping to celebrate the milestones. And that's something that I don't think is a great thing. You're just wanting more, essentially, even though you can disguise it as being dedicated and motivated. But I really ultimately think you're just maybe being a little bit greedy and that you can be dedicated, motivated, and want more and accomplish more, but you need to realize like what you have in front of you. And that's something my mom always was so good at. How you were saying how your dad would look up at the clouds, to a fault, in my opinion, when I was younger. Now, not so much, but my mom would be like, stop walking, look up at the tree. Do you see that like one branch? It's so beautiful. And I'm like, Mom, let's like hike faster, let's get to the top. And that's something that was absolutely meant to be my mom, because it taught me so many things like that of, you need to stop and appreciate the little things and be grateful for them and take time to notice them and slow down enough. Where is it that you can slow down so you can see those things? If we're running full speed, you just don't have time. You don't make the time. So also then losing her and the process while she was sick. She had cancer for 2 years, and that rocked us. I mean, she was the healthiest.
When you got that news, how did they call you? Did they have you how do you respond to that?
So her and my dad were still Vancouver Island, Canada. I was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they texted my husband and they said, hey, we have to FaceTime Eva. Can you make sure you're with her? Like, of course, that's not a good thing. Yeah. Of course, no one ever wants, I didn't see the text, but Tim's like, hey, your parents want to FaceTime you. Let's go sit down. I'm like, this is annoying and weird. And like, why are we doing this? And so they had found out that she had stage 4 cancer. She was like the healthiest person ever. Did yoga 3 times a week, hiked mountains 5 times a week, was like a little fit. She was a dancer her whole life, like just ate like the most boring healthy food, like never went off of her little, like she just never cheated on like just what you would think is like she should live till she's 130. And looked like she was 40 and she was 66. And she had a little cough, like a dry cough, and my dad heard it for like a week, and then he's like, you need to go get it checked. And she's like, I mean, it's just kind of weird. Nothing. Didn't feel bad, was still hiking, and went and got it. They went and did a lung scan, and just for like a baseline so that they could see, at 65, I guess at the time, this is where you're at. So like when you're 70, we'll be able to check back. And they found like just a huge tumor that had been growing. They thought it was fast acting, and they said this was October, and they said she probably wouldn't live till Christmas. And so we were like, this is what she told us on the phone. And obviously I had went from not thinking anything about anything to being like, what? And this was during COVID. Which was worse because of that, obviously. And so you had to get COVID tested. I feel like maybe the statute of limitations are gone now, so I can tell this story. I'm not really sure. I'm just kidding. And this is like not allowed. But you had to get COVID tested to go to Canada, and it took 24 hours. And this was at like 9 p.m. And I'm like getting on a plane at 6 a.m. to Canada. I do not care what's happening. Right. And so I had not a super real COVID test that I brought with me because I checked it. It was just like a screenshot. That's all you needed to show them. Because I'm going to see my mom, and I was there the next day at like 9 a.m. As far as you can go. I could have got to Africa faster than getting home. And at the time, I had like an 18-month-old. My son was like 18 months. My daughter was 3.5. So that was extremely challenging. Right. We had no family there. So my husband took the brunt of that. But of course, like my mom was my best friend my whole life. Yeah. It was the weirdest thing. Like a week before we found out, or they told us, they knew for a week, but they didn't tell me and my brother. They were just kind of like sitting in it to like figure out what to do. And a week before they told me, so they knew I had this really weird feeling, and I told my dad, we were talking one time, and I'm like, hey, how's mom? What's mom doing? And he's like, she's good. And something had happened. I don't remember what it was. And I just said, I just want to let you know if there's ever anything wrong with her, because they're like protectors of news, and they have always been like, we don't want to like, put that on you. And like, I guess her parents used to be like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment, and they might find something, and then my mom would be stressed, and they didn't want to do that to us. And I'm like, just so you know, if something's ever wrong with mom, like, I'm the personality. I want to know. I don't want you to keep it. And it was just the weirdest conversation. And he teared up, and I'm like, this is weird. And so then I got kind of choked up. It didn't tell me anything, but already knew at the time. Then that night I was talking to my husband, and I started having a panic attack, which I only had one time. One time a friend of mine passed away, and I had a panic attack. Didn't know what it was when I was like in my 20s. I started having a panic attack, and he's like, what's going on? And I started telling him, if something ever happens to my mom, like, I don't think I'll be okay. And this was just a random thought. And then about like 3 or 4 days later, that's when they called us. It's just like, why was that in my head? I have no idea. So yeah, spent a lot of time. So they thought it was 3 months to live. We ended up getting a second opinion. Godsend is one of our good friends, runs like this really great cancer clinic in North Carolina. They took all of her results that she had got, and I guess her doctors were wrong, and it was still stage 4, but it wasn't so fast acting. They think it's probably been there for like 10 years, which was even more disheartening, because then you're like, well, maybe not more disheartening, but like, why wasn't this caught? One of those. But again, what are you going to do? Like, you can't. So then they knew it was going to be terminal, but they didn't quite know how much time she had. So then the next almost 2 years, I spent probably like 70% of it in Canada.
I remember watching that.
Just going during COVID, which I think back, like, I don't know how I did that with the 2 kids. Yeah. Either brought them or left them in North Carolina, brought them with me. COVID tests, all just absolutely, like, the stress on my body for 2 full years was, and when she passed away, I lost like 40 pounds because I couldn't even, and I barely remember it after she, like the 6 months after, I don't know what it was like with your dad. There was like relief because she was so sick. Yeah. There was exhaustion. There was like gratitude. I was with my family. I was like, gosh, I mean, I was just a disaster. Not really a disaster. I was okay because I had so long to get there.
Kind of prepare.
If she would have passed away in 3 months, I still don't know what that would have been like, because I wouldn't have felt like I had any time. I had enough time, and I spent, again, I'm so grateful for my husband, of course, to be like, go and do that, because I needed to be like, when she's gone, I need to feel like I did everything I could and was there as much as I could be, even though it's not convenient in any way to be there for 2 months at a time while I have an 18-month-old at home. But it's just, it really, back to your question about things she taught me, was she always wanted me to slow down, and I always ignored her. And then when she got this diagnosis, and she was the healthiest person we knew, and she was about to lose her life, and you're like, what am I doing that's shouldn't be a priority right now? Because, like, it's so cliche, but like, tomorrow we can get a diagnosis, and any of us who all think we're healthy and, so strong, we can have 3 months to live. And what were we doing up to this point that we really didn't need to be doing, or really shouldn't have been? Is that what we want to be on our deathbed thinking? That's what I spent my last year doing. And so while she was sick, I really feel like my whole personality kind of changed. I was just with Cassidy on my team talking, and she's like, what are your goals? I'm like, for the first time in my life, I feel like very settled, and it's weird that I am not rushing to get to the next thing, because I'm like, I'm with my kids, and I still get to live a lifestyle and have like a job, and it's great. But my mom's influence on what's important and where to spend your time and what to think about and what not to miss, and not to miss the trees, and not to miss the birds, and not to miss this beautiful something, XYZ. It really can be anything, and to find the beauty in the moments, even if they're like the worst moments, like when she was getting so sick, and when she was having the worst diagnosis, and when we got the worst news. Like, there's beauty in that we were with her. My brother was out there. Me and him were together more than we have been since we've been teenagers. My dad had to rely on us. We had, community coming in. We're not people that like accepting help. The Shockey family, just in general, it's not our thing. And learning how that people just like really love you. People really, they're not doing it because they want to be like, I helped them. They're not doing it to get a thank you card. They shouldn't be. They're doing it because they just really love you. And the lessons that I learned because of that, again, I would love to have my mom around still, but it really changed me as a human being, and still has opened my eyes. I'm like constantly like, what? And it's weird because growing up and being one way for 35 years and having the last 2 years where I'm like, who is this? And I feel like she comes through me a lot more now. Like, just as an example, I never used to cry, and now I will burst into tears, which was my mom my whole life. And I'm like, I don't think that just happens when you're 35. I don't think that just comes into
It started with me when I was like 7.
That's more normal. You make sense. You actually fall into the category of like, that makes sense in like a personality. I really just am not a big crier, and Tim will look over and I'll just be bawling, like at whatever. Sometimes it's sad things, but lots of times it's just like
maybe joyful, right?
like mostly joyful, mostly like a score and a movie, like the sound kind of like lifts up and elevates, and I'm like, boom, like tears everywhere, and my kids are like, what is wrong with you? So yeah, I think, I don't know, the soul is there, that the lessons that you learn through those very horrible journeys, again, never would want that on anyone. Right. The memories that I have when I think about them, I just try not to focus on like the really sad ones. I focus on when it was really sad. If I see a photo and you're like, oh, that time was the worst, like what were the beautiful things? So I don't know. Maybe it's a coping mechanism.
I think it's
probably
powerful.
Should be something to unpack with a therapist. But
I think it's powerful. It just shows gratitude, and it shows like you're I think leaning on God and what He's trying to teach you in those moments. You know, there's a wise purpose in it all, and unless we slow down, it'll pass us by. I feel like this message is coming at me it's now from you, just this past few days. And this is the Conquer Cast. So we're trying to equip people with ways to conquer in life. And so I think this is one of the greatest principles of them all, to slow down, to smell the roses, to take life in, to enjoy the relationships around you. Just the last few days, my wife and my mom were both giving me the same counsel. And now I'm hearing it from you as well. And it's like, yeah, the adversary has this effect on us where he wants us to run faster than we can and move faster and reach out for this, when what that does is it distracts us from what's going on right in front of us, right? And there's so much good with your children, with your husband, and for me with my wife and my children and my mother and my siblings and work. Like there's just so much good happening right here in these moments, and unless we intentionally choose to see them, or to see my dad, the other thing was birds, and you mentioned birds. My kids though, they were always like, why does he keep telling us to look at the birds? We were at Disney World for my 40th birthday, the most like chaotic place of all, with all these sensory overload, you know. And my dad, look at the birds, look at the clouds. And that was the moment where we started kind of joking around with him, where it's like,
did he do this before he was sick, like his
so
whole
my
whole
dad
time, or
my
once
dad
he got
I didn't
sick?
get to say goodbye. He fell down the stairs and broke his neck. And it was like that. So when I hear that you had that time, I wish I did, but then at the same time I'm like, I don't know if I would have been as strong as you to go through knowing, okay, I'm in these moments and I want to make sure I say the right things, and that she knows and he knows, and you know, and the countdown. I don't know how well I would have done in that. And so, but there are moments where I'm like, oh, he was at my house a few days ago and I didn't know that was the last. And I wish I would have taken that call a little faster, or called him back, you know, or that I knew that this was happening, so I could have given him a little bit more time. But
I don't know if there's
a right way or wrong way.
Just make whatever happened to you okay, and like figure out how you can live with that and cope with that. And again, there was a lot of things that I would have rather not seen, you know, like going for a 2-year cancer journey where someone, you know, they're dying at the end, like you just don't know what day, but you know it's just slowly in the person you love, like that. There's a lot of things that I would love to be out of my brain and out of my heart that I had to go through. Also, that other really interesting thing was the personalities of family and friends and different things. When you're losing somebody, it's kind of like everyone's at their worst because they're at their saddest, you know, and you're also, there's a dynamic of figuring out who thinks we should do what and who has the biggest say. And of course, you know, the spouse, but then like the kid, I mean, it was just, there was more to it. I think also, well, something like that, even maybe more so, is, and again, this isn't anything about my dad making the wrong choice or my mom making the wrong choice. It was more, I've taken it as a lesson, was my dad worked really, really hard his whole life, like the hardest work I've ever met. And it was incredible because we had amazing opportunities. That's how I started in the industry. I mean, got to travel, amazing, no regrets. And he did amazing with what he was given to be a dad. He was going to retire, like slow down at 55 or 50. And then it was, well, that's pretty young now. It seems old when you're in your like 40s, but like, it's really not. And then it was like, well, 55. Okay, well, look, 60. Okay, well, we're still not slowing down. And him and my mom the week that she got her diagnosis, they were starting for the first year to come spend 6 months where I live in the South and then come 6 months in Canada. They were coming that week. So we were like ready for them to come. I think I had cleaned her car, like she was about to come, and that's when they called us with the news.
And life was going to slow down.
Intentionally,
they were going to,
Intentionally, they were going to enjoy time with the grandkids and golfing and not rushing around everywhere. And that never happened because she came back one time after she was diagnosed for a little bit. But again, it was different, you know, after chemo. And so I watched my dad work. My mom, parent, keep the house together in hopes that we're going to slow down at this junction.
Yeah.
And that junction never came. And then she passed away. And my dad, and this is with absolute, like, love and appreciation, he has a wonderful girlfriend, and they're very happy. And they're doing all these beautiful trips and amazing things. And I love that for him. I'm so happy that he is in that spot compared to, like, we all went through HELL for those 2 years. And so I'm so happy they got to do that. But that, looking from the outside in, I'm like, my husband and I are like, you can't just wait for this day. I think you started talking about this maybe before the podcast, that like might not come. I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words. So, like, do what makes you happy now, and if you want to go do something with your family, do it with your family. Or I'm not saying spend all your life savings, but like, you can do a lot of things and not push them off, because you just don't know what's gonna happen. And so like, you want, just be really intentional with your time and with your decisions and what you're doing with your kids and or your spouse or yourself, even if you have the things you want to do. That scares me. Like, not a lot of stuff scares me, but that's one of my fears as well. Missing out on all these things that's what scares me. So I'm like, well, then I'm a problem solver. How do we solve that? Let's just try to live our lives. My dad's always like, when he hears what we're doing, he's like, you guys are so busy. And it's like, good busy, but like, we're with people we love. We're inviting people into our home to spend time with us. We're going on trips on the weekends where we just like are very intentional. Like, that's cool. Or maybe the intentionality is staying home and sitting on the couch and playing board games with our kids, but like, just aware of our time and as much as possible, because it goes so fast.
It does. It's crazy. And what I had said before was, it's a quote that says there's a danger in the word someday, when what that means is not this day. Yeah. And it can be the thief of the opportunities of time and blessings of eternity if we choose to always live out there in the future, which we never really live in it. Once it's there, it's the present, you know? So we need to make sure that the present moments are those sacred moments. And was that your mom taught you that lesson to kind of slow down? It sounds like throughout your life and throughout her life, when she was going through her cancer, were those similar conversations? Was that kind of the message she would give to you and counsel she'd give to you? Or were there nuggets that you took away during that where like things got really real and it was like?
I think the nuggets that I took away and the inspiration and the role model that she was before the cancer. As soon as she got sick, she was pretty sick pretty quickly, which again was like a big eye opening. Like, wow, change. It is flipped quick. Might have been part mental, part mental on her part of like, I'm dying and shutting down. I don't, who knows? Right. We obviously have not been in that situation, thank goodness. But what I think she was so inspiring in her parenting style and what she shared and what she just passed on my whole life, really up until that 35-ish, when I found all this out when I was 35. Then when she got sick, it was like, well, now let's put this into practice. She wasn't, she definitely had some things to say for sure during that 2 years. Of course, she wasn't like out of it or anything at the beginning, but it was more like, here's what I've passed on to you. She wasn't necessarily saying, let's see how you use it, but I was like, this is now, let's see how I use what you showed me and what you gave me and what you shared with me, because it's incredible what she passed along and just her messages about life. And then you get put in a situation. She also was very positive the whole time, which was really inspiring. I don't know. She was not like someone that was just moping around. She was like, I'm ready. I've had a life. I've had kids and family and husband and grandkids that are beautiful, and we have health, and we've had opportunities to travel, and like, I have nothing else that I want. She was like the opposite of what the personality I've had my whole life. She's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? We're just good? Like, but of course we're good. Like, look at what, of course we are. But lots of us are like, oh no, we need more and more and more. It's just, I don't exactly know how she lived like that so naturally. Like, it was just,
It's a gift, huh?
yeah, 100% is a gift because I have to force myself.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I think it's incredible, and I aspire to
Right.
be more naturally like that. But I think the whole fake it till you make it thing, like, you can still try to be, you can aspire to be like that and work really hard to be like that. And I really do. That's something every single day I try to stop and slow down. Even as I'm saying this, I'm like, I'm sure I've done a horrible job of it this week. I was busy. I was anxious about the trip coming here and probably wasn't present, probably wasn't doing it. Like, but that's something when I get home, just reset a little bit and take the time and just try to like ground yourself a little bit, because
and she'd probably say, Eva, you're doing an amazing job. Give yourself some grace and just keep looking for those moments. If she was here right now and you could share, and not saying she's not here right now, but if she was physically here right now and it's a Mother's Day message you would want to share to her.
Oh, you got me. I've been so good at not crying this whole time. I don't know. I just telling her how much I appreciate how much she guided me, even during like the harder times when I was a tough teenager, and like, she never let up on the love that she had. Never let up. Never questioned. I've never questioned anything about how much she cared and how much she was there for me at all times. And really, being a parent, as we've discussed at the beginning, now that I'm a parent, like, it's hard, especially with like an intense personality and you can't control everybody. Like, you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Being able to rely on her messages and the things that I felt the most loved, in the moments I felt the most loved, what was she doing in those times, and being able to tell her how much of an impact it's made on me as a mom and my kids, being able to feel that from me. And that was because of her. Like, again, no offense to my dad, who I love, but like, if I would mother like with just his personality, like, it would be a very intense mother. And I'm like traditional, like, I think the mother is like the nurturer, and so that was just something that I got to experience my whole life because of my mom. I think the lessons, if she wouldn't have passed, I probably would still be running 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I would still take that over her passing for sure, of me being so busy and missing the trees. But that was not the plan. That was not God's plan. And so the fact that she taught these lessons by passing on is really, how can you, there's nothing more selfless you can do than to move on and let these messages, then like all of us like sit in it and settle. And
that's cool.
Let's just see how it's impacted us. And really, everyone immediately close to her really has been changed by it, which I'm sure is similar in your family. Like, you're never going to be the same once they're gone and what you've learned from it. But in our situation as well, because of being sort of a public family and having all the social media, and she was on the shows, and I think it's gone further than our family. So when we go to events and everyone, it's slowed down now because it's been 1.5 years, but for the first year, every event, every person, that's all they said was talking about my mom, and everyone's stories about how she impacted them. It's just like incredible. Millions of people that her amazing, incredible personality spread out to. Wasn't just my family. Like,
I was grateful to be one for just a
a
day and a half, and it's like,
much,
but it like had a profound impact on us. We were kind of taken aback because you don't receive that type of love everywhere you go. Or
it's fake, or
it's like, we'll do dinner and then go to your hotel and enjoy that. It's like, really? I remember her stirring a pot of beans, and then she put the beans on the plate, and I think we had some vegetables that went with it and stuff, and but it was just with so much love. And so there is she is leaving a legacy that's powerful and impactful, and in certain ways they have the ability to influence in a different, maybe a holier and higher way than they could if they were here physically, right? And still be an influence on you and on your children, And I've seen that with my dad and with my children, you know. So
That's actually really, I love that you said legacy, because in our family, that's sort of been a thing that I think that's been, not I think, it's been my dad's goal to have a legacy, like create a legacy, leave a legacy. One of his fears, like his dad passed away and didn't really like, you know, people remember because of our show probably,
Right.
but like other than that, like what he did in his life was just normal, and which is fine and totally great. But one of my dad's fears was like, I need to like leave a mark.
Oh man,
You
what a
know,
mark.
what a mark, exactly. And what's been interesting is my mom never strived to do that. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She did not want this big career. She wanted to slow down and be present. And then you say that she left a legacy, and you're like, a legacy can look very different. A legacy can look like the hardest working man in the room who like pushes and pushes and pushes and is incredible and deserves everything, you know, like he did that and God led him there and all that. But a legacy can also be someone that is selfless and beautiful and spreads love wherever she goes. And
What more impact could you have than love?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the greatest of all, you know, and that's the kind of impact and legacy that lasts a very, very long time, when you help somebody feel loved, or that somebody believes in them, and that she gave your family that time. And you know, you've probably heard the quote. I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but love is measured with 4 letters, and it's time. You know,
I actually haven't, but that's very relevant to having little kids, because that's all they want.
They want your time and attention, right?
That's all they want.
Yeah.
You're like right in the heart, because there's always times where you're like, I'm busy, I'm doing this, and you're like, but the little eyeballs, and they're like, all they want is, they don't care about whatever you're doing.
I
do not care.
That's so true. It's so true. Well, you're doing an amazing job of carrying on the legacy that your parents have created, the legacy of love. And I know you're saying, I'm this of my dad and this of my, you're doing an amazing job. People feel loved by you, and it's awesome that you're strong and bold, and you know, you've got tenacity in life, and you're going after things, because I feel like that's the world needs more of that. And to couple that with love, there's no greater impact or power in this world. And so I think it's awesome that you're bringing all of those characteristic traits from your parents and implementing them into your life, and then instilling that in your children as well. Any last little bits about your mom before I've got one last question before we wrap this up, or anything you want to tell the world?
No, she's just, no. I'm sure we always say you can look up, when she passed away, you'd see a sunset. She just always loved the beauty of that. Obviously, I think a lot of us do. That's a kind of an obvious, beautiful thing that you really should stop and look at the sunset. But you can look up any day and see it, you know, and you see her. And so we all see, and so around the world, you can see her. My dad and her used to say, and then when I started traveling and being away from her, you can look up at the moon, and she can be looking at the moon in Vancouver, and I can be looking at the moon in North Carolina, and it's the same moon that we're looking at it right there. And like, so whether someone wants to connect with my mom or connect with someone that they lost or whatever it is, like there's things that they're in that. It's the same one.
That's great.
We're all in it together.
Because I'm sure there's people that are going through similar things in life, with maybe a loved one that's passed, or just difficulties, and you need to stop and recognize those things that are simple at times, but have so much meaning if we actually take a moment to take it in. So there's a book that we read here at Mountain Ops on a regular basis for our book club, and it's called How Will You Measure Your Life? And it talks about how our best investments are into relationships, and they pay dividends for generations to come, like this legacy we've been talking about. And that title of that book is kind of how I like to end every podcast. As a mother or as a conqueror in life, how will you measure your life when all is said and done?
If I leave this earth and I feel like my children have been loved, and they know God, and they are kind to other people and show love, I don't care if they are the CEO of a big company, or a janitor, or the president, or I don't know, American Idol, like whatever it is that they do, like that doesn't matter. And like that's not what they find their identity in, but they find their identity in who they are as a person, knowing that God loves them and that they need to love other people and love themselves. I think that would be enough.
That's awesome.
I would love to just never leave though and just be here forever.
I know. I agree.
I'm not going to go easily, so.
Put up a fight.
Yeah.
That's such good advice. And I think it's what we should all strive to leave for our children, for our spouses, for anyone that we have influence over, helping them know that they're loved and they have belonging and that they have divine qualities and gifts that you're instilling in your children, and you're helping them understand that they come from God and they can trust in him and his plan. I think that's incredible. So Eva, this has been awesome. Thank you for spending the time here at Mountain Ops. We're going to go get a workout in. We're actually going to do a little flavor sampling with Eva. I don't know what the products are that we're going to be sampling, but we're going to get your input on some new flavors. We're going to pack some meals, hopefully for some kids in the community that need them. And then we'll get a little workout in with some of the team members. But this has been great. And everyone that's listening, if you're a woman, happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
And hope that you know how valuable and loved you are. And hope you take the wise counsel from Eva and her mother, and just to slow down a little bit, to recognize all the beauty around us and take it all in, appreciate it, and give thanks to God for it. And I believe that this is how we conquer in life.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I would like to say also for you and your whole team, I said it at the beginning of this podcast, but has been a huge impact on me. It really has, in being able to align with a company that is so strong in just what your mission and what you believe in and your faith and your love for family. Being able to work with a company like that and sort of be part of y'all's big family, it's really incredible. And it doesn't exist a lot, and it's this little gem that you guys have created, and it's just so great. It's very inspiring to come here and being able to talk. Definitely never done a podcast quite like this one either.
Really?
These are questions that do not get asked to me on podcasts, so I love it. It's great.
Well, good. No, you're a huge part of what we do, and I really hope that you feel that and know that from me. I just can't be more grateful for you and the influence you've had on the way that this business has been run and the way that we've reached audiences and the good that we're able to do because of you. So, and from my wife and me, we're excited to spend some time with you and your husband on those trips. And yeah, it's going to be amazing. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.